Morning, Graham.
Morning, Matthew.
Morning. Thanks for picking up the phone. Let's hear your views, please.
Well, my story... first of all, let me say that Anne has said more or less everything that I would have said as a parent who lost a child. But my child was an only child. She was 9 years old, and she died suddenly of SUDEP. My partner was... we were both terribly grief-stricken. But she said, I'm nothing if I'm not a mother, and if I don't... if I can't continue without being a mother, and I want to be with Billy, which is my daughter's maiden name. My daughter's name, rather. Yeah. Fortunately, we managed to conceive, much against my will. I was very fearful, particularly of losing another child. But somebody helped me by saying the love that you have is spread. I was conscious of not thinking I couldn't love another person, another child, the way I love my Billy. And then Louis came along, and I love him just as him, as much as I could ever love another child. And that's a very important thing to remember, that however much you love one person, as far as loving children is concerned, you can love another one as well, and it doesn't diminish. It's just
everything sounds so true. Did it help? I mean, did it help you?
I think, again, Anne, I think, expressed it quite much better than I could. Yes and no. Yes, in as much as it's given me a completely new lease of life. I had a son after a daughter, so having a son is quite different. But yes, it's given me purpose that I probably certainly would never have had. If my life would certainly not be the same. And it's given me that joy that you get with having children. Obviously, I still carry the pain of the loss of my daughter, and sometimes it's much heavier to bear than others. But my son obviously takes my eye off that ball most of the time.
OK, now, there was something Anne said, which I think struck us all here on the panel. I just wondered if it resonated with you. She said that people will treat Samantha Cameron differently now she's got a child on the way, because it's easier to talk about something positive where perhaps they might have been tongue-tied thinking, oh, she's grieving about Ivan. Did you notice that your friends, or maybe people, slightly less friends, colleagues, associates, found it easier to talk to you when you had a son?
I wasn't conscious of that, but I suspect it's more the mother thing. I suspect that we did certainly notice that people would cross the street when my daughter died because they didn't know what to say, and I found that there was a division in the people I knew and just acquaintances. Those that would come up and address me, I felt were much sort of full of human beings. It's a much better thing to do if somebody is in grief, to speak to them and give them condolences. And one interesting thing Anne said was that she gave her newborn child the same second name, and I did the same. My son is Louis William. My daughter was Billy. So that may be a common thing. We're trying to carry on the life of the lost child in the life of the new one.
Graham, thank you very much for picking up the phone. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's have another.
OK, we have Robert on line 3.
Robert, good morning.
Hiya.
So what's your take on this, Robert?
Well, I lost mine. He was 22 weeks, and he was stillborn. Right. And he was my first son. And we have a 6-month-old now, but he still never goes away in my thoughts. He's always still there.
In a positive way, or in a every time?
In a positive way. Okay. Yeah, because one thing that does annoy me is that people try to avoid talking about him as though he didn't exist. They skip around the subject, and I don't want that. He was my son, and I want him to still be in my life, even though he's not in my life, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
no, again, I don't mean this crassly. I'm going to ask you, Robert, because you're on the phone, but someone, before we came on air, was saying, say there's a family of 3 and they lose a child. Yeah. When you talk to them, do they still have 3 children?
Oh, I have this problem all the time.
Of course. So what's your take, Robert, first of all?
Yeah, I would say, he's still there. Just because he's died doesn't mean he's not part of our life. We have pictures of him. He's there. Just because he's passed on doesn't mean that he wasn't part of our lives. So I have 3 children. I have one at 11, one at 6 months. But it's just, Yeah.
I just wanted to ask because it's clearly a question
That is
that bothers.
socially one of the most difficult things there is, especially when newspapers are writing about your mother of, and they often put mother of 4, which kills me because I'm a mother of 5. But then if you say, people say, how many children have you got? And I say 5, and then there are only 4 in front of you. I have to explain the one that's missing. It's hell. That is one of the most difficult social things there is.
And Simon, there's so much to get through, but just because you've travelled, why are we so peculiar about death?
Well, I think one of the great differences between a society like ours and a society, let's say in Southeast Asia, in India, let's say, is that we're not confronted by it to the same degree because we live in smaller family units. We sort of push other family members away because we get on with our little nuclear family and we get on with life like that. And other communities around the world, let's say India, for example, they embrace all elements of the family. They draw them all in. They have a huge community and an extended family. So they witness and are confronted by death from very early in life, and they don't shy away from it because they can't. We try and ignore and pretend
it's not
death
there.
doesn't happen somehow because we're so busy living for the moment. But you can't ignore the fact that this happens to all of us, and it will blight people's lives. And it's something we have. I think we almost have to learn the process of grieving and learn how to deal with people who die because it happens to us all.
Now, there's a couple of other things. Time is very short, and we've got so many calls, and I'm afraid I haven't got time to do them justice. So let me just give you an email here. This is from Jim. I'm not going to read out his last name. I'm a replacement child. My brother died before I was born. I was given his exact name. I've spent my life in his shadow and feel I can never live up to the expectations that my parents had for him. I now live a very distant life apart from my parents. My only saving grace is having a younger brother whom I have a very close bond with. And then one final note, and I just think this is fascinating just to wrap it up on. And this is a text from a lady called Audrey. Salvador Dali was born after his brother Salvador died from a childhood illness, I think when he was 2. The first son was meant to have been a genius, and parents kept his portrait above their bed forever. And our Salvador said he was never sure if it was himself or the both of them combined. And we checked this out, and in actual fact, it was true. And when he was 5 years old, Salvador Dali was taken to his brother's grave and told he was the incarnation of the first Salvador.
I'm sure that's not healthy.
I wouldn't have thought it's healthy too, but maybe great art doesn't necessarily come from healthy people.
No, exactly.
Thanks for all the calls on that. We could have gone on it for the rest of the show, I think. It is good to talk about stuff like this sometimes, so thank you.